So a very warm welcome to our R3.0 Open Dialogue series in 2026. This is dialogue number 13. We're spotlighting bioregional confluences in Palestine and Somalia. We're very excited about this session. My name is Ralf Turm. I'm the managing director of R3.0, and together with Bill Bowie, our senior director, we're facilitating this session. We have two distinguished speakers today, Mazin Qumsiyeh from the Western Asia-Palestine Bioregion and Yasmin Mohamud from the Somali Arid and Semi-Arid lands bioregion. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What we will do is just to give, as always, a little bit of engagement guidance and then do some context setting before Mazin and Yasmin are going to present their cases. And then we're going into a facilitated open dialogue, which normally takes about half of the time of these 1.5 hours before we come to some closing remarks. So first of all, a couple of engagement guidance points. As I already said, please stay on mute as much as you can. We welcome to have you with your cameras on. It's always good to talk to a face and not just to a black screen, but we also understand if you can't. So that's fully understood. In order to add questions, please use the chat sidebar and please put the questions in as they occur so that you don't forget them. We'll curate questions to cover in the second segment of this presentation in a facilitated dialogue. And in that case, it might be that we summarize or cluster certain questions for efficiency reasons, and we may ask you to voice them yourselves. And in that case, please respect everyone by keeping your questions succinct and on the topic, and of course, respectful. As always, we do have a open dialogue Google document, as you can see here, and Bill will surely put the link into the chat so they can access that. That helps us for you, or it helps all of us to add additional comments and also resource links into that document. And that prevents distraction in the sidebar during the session with regard to questions that we're collecting there. This document is publicly accessible after the event as a living resource. So if you want your contribution to be named, then please add your name and your contribution so that we can identify that. And as you've already seen, we're recording this session and for public posting on our Open Dialogues landing page on our website. So it will be accessible in about 24 to 48 hours. This slide and the next slide is just sort of a summary of all of the sessions that we had in the Open Dialogues series, which we launched already in January 2024 and then moved on bridged into 2025 and now into 2026. And this is a compendium of all of the dialogues that we had, which we don't have to go through right now. You will find them on the open landing page, but at least that you have a little bit of an impression of what we did so far, with in total 12 sessions now. Today is the 13th session, and we just announced also our 14th session as well. So that's just a little bit of an intro, and with that, I'll hand it over to Bill to get us into today's topic.
Great, thanks so much, Ralph, and thanks everyone for showing up. Just a bit of context setting for this particular open dialogue. So as Ralph mentioned, we've been hosting these open dialogues for over 2 years at this point. And this is a sort of a special instance in the sense that we host monthly calls for our bioregional confluencing community. That's the community of people who are hosting an in-person gathering in their bioregion alongside the R3.0 conference in September. This is the first instance where we've decided to actually open this up and invite speakers from the confluences to speak in our open dialogue series. So not just to the confluencing community itself, but to the broader public. And so we chose a couple of bioregions that are new to us. They actually happen to be, we found out afterwards, both networked through our media partner, StoryMoss. So thanks to Emmanuel and Megan for that. And so we looked through the list. We've got, as we'll share later, more than 80 confluences registered at this point. And these two, we hadn't engaged with Yasmin or Mazin yet. So we decided to reach out for this kind of spotlighting in this particular open dialogue. So we're going to start with Professor Mazin Qumsiyeh and then go to Yasmin Mohamud. Ralph, if you go to the next slide, and I can introduce Professor Qumsiyeh, and then yes, Mazin will give you, will make you a co-host so that you can share slides. So just by way of introduction, Professor Qumsiyeh was nominated for the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize, and he's sharing on the work that he stewards with the Palestine Institute for Biodiversity and Sustainability at Bethlehem University, and about the bioregional context of the Western Asia-Palestine. So Professor Qumsiyeh, over to you.
Thanks. I'm sharing my slides. I hope you'll be able to see them in a minute.
We do see them.
Yeah. And I have to make it full screen. There we go. All right. So Palestine, for the sake of situating where we are at the intersection of continents. Palestine is this bottleneck where humans migrated out of Africa to the rest of the world. And it's still a bottleneck for bird migration, for example. 500 million birds migrate from Eurasia to Africa every year through Palestine. So it's a very important geographic area and geologic area. It has the lowest point on Earth. It has high mountains. It's a very tiny area, small area. It's the western part of the Fertile Crescent where humans, of course, first developed agriculture, where we first domesticated animals and plants about 10,000 BC or 12,000 years ago. And the people of Palestine, who are descendant of those original migrating people out of Africa, Homo sapiens out of Africa, if you want, continued to live here in relative harmony with nature and with each other for thousands of years. What you hear on the news, unfortunate that we are at a situation where we do have a genocide.
In a bit. You saw my email to Lou.
No.
Okay, well, anyway, we're not going to see Sandy. So, I mean, see Andy. So,
Sorry.
Apologies, I put somebody on mute there. Back to you.
Okay. So anyways, we are in relative harmony. People lived together here for thousands of years until the past 100 years when we had this Zionist colonization and genocide that's ongoing, an ecocide of Palestine that started in 1948 with the ethnic cleansing of most indigenous Palestinian villages and towns. Some 530 Palestinian villages and towns were depopulated. This is an ongoing process of colonization and ethnic cleansing. And today, as I speak to you, 15.5 million Palestinians in the world, 8.5 million of them are refugees or displaced people. And but this is not unique for Palestine. It has happened in many, many countries. For example, the United States, what's now called the United States, how it was before the European invasion, and what happened to the indigenous people, and what happened to the wildlife, of course. This is displacement settler colonialism, which has certain ramifications for our environment and for our people. And I don't have too much time, of course, to go through all the symptoms of colonization, but you're all familiar with it from your own countries, so I won't belabor it too much. But there's an intersection of this colonial system damage to the environment and to the local people with other damages that are happening now at an accelerating pace. I mean, I don't hide to you that I'm kind of pessimistic about the future of humanity, not just because of war and nuclear weapons and things like that, but also climate change, habitat destruction, pollution, overexploitation, and invasive species. All of these things, by the way, are also impacted and accelerated by settler colonialism. For example, in our case, the colonial settlers, the Zionists, brought in more than 400 species of invasive plant species and many invasive animals also. That's heavily damaging our environment. This damage, of course, includes also uprooting trees and planting, instead of the indigenous trees that they uprooted millions of indigenous trees. They planted pine trees, which are susceptible to fires. And you can see here fires in West Jerusalem, how they consumed the pine trees and exposed the terraces that our ancestors have built over generations. This is just across from me here in Bethlehem, the colony of Har Homa, which is built on Jabal Abu Ghneim, what it used to look like on the top as a forested area, and what it looks like now as basically a jungle of concrete building, Jewish-only colony in Palestine. This is, again, expected in colonialism. Destruction of river systems, for example, in the US, in Australia, many other countries. Also here, destruction of the Jordan River Basin that the Zionists have done by diverting the water of the Jordan River Basin that dried it up, and we can see desertification spreading. This is what the Jordan River used to look like before and after. This is not about, by the way, that they needed the water. It's just to deny the indigenous people the water. We don't have shortage of water. If water was distributed equally, there is actually more rainfall in Ramallah than in London. The only difference is that the Jewish colonial settlers use most of the water, or take most of the water, and even dump half of it. But it's to deny the indigenous people. And what's happening in the Gaza Strip now, we did some studies using remote sensing like this one about the destruction of tree cover in Gaza. Now we estimate some 94% of tree cover in Gaza was destroyed intentionally by the Israeli colonizers. The Israeli restrictions on Palestinian food sovereignty affects everything in our life, of course. Again, I don't have time to talk about this. Let me now switch to talk about solutions, if you want. And since we talk about bioregions, as you call them, and I publish papers on biocultural landscapes and how we alter the situation, etc. We set up this Palestine Institute for Biodiversity and Sustainability, whose vision is sustainable human and natural communities. And towards this, of course, we empower women, for example, to produce natural ingredient products and sell them. We show them how to make these natural ingredients. We work with children. We have a food garden, basically a community garden that we try to produce our own food. These are some children working and learning about nature. We do a lot of education in our institute, primarily focused on biodiversity and sustainability, as I said. Sustainability through food sovereignty, through independence, thinking, liberating our minds before we liberate our bodies. We have aquaponic systems. We work on permaculture. These are just some pictures of children in our communities that are working and learning. We have chickens, of course, in our garden and producing eggs. The programs that we have for children are focused on empowering them to respect each other, respect themselves, respect nature also. So these are just some of our activities. You can see, I love to see children here every day. We have activities like here picking olives, for example. So we work also on urban and peri-urban agriculture in eco-friendly way, including on greening roofs and walls and things like that. We do a lot of science, also science-based work. We develop science. We publish 2 research papers every month. And then we try to bridge the science policy practice gaps. This is not an easy thing. When I say it like that, bridging science policy practice gaps sounds short and easy, but it's not very easy, as you can imagine. Even in normal circumstances, even if we didn't have colonialism and occupation and ethnic cleansing and genocide and ecocide, even if we didn't have all of that, it still would be very difficult. Even in Western countries, I notice, and I do consult even for Western countries on these matters, bridging the science policy practice gaps towards sustainability is not an easy task. So one of the things we have to do is, because of limited resources, we have to rely on volunteers. So more than 80% of our labor is from volunteers, and we have not just a local center, but a national center, a regional center, and increasingly now a global center for biodiversity and sustainability. So 80% of this work in this global center is done by volunteers, and they come from 47 countries so far, and hopefully some of you will volunteer and come join us. Me and my wife are also full-time volunteers for the past 12 years in this institute, 7 days a week, 14, 15 hours a day we work. So here's what some of the volunteers do, whether in the garden or making a biogas unit or eating together. We are a family, basically. Here you can see working in the community garden. I will end with these couple of slides. This is from Gaza, actually. These 2 children are children of a friend of mine. Of course, his house was destroyed, like 95% of the houses in Gaza. So they're living in tents now. But he's trying to grow some vegetables next to his tent, as you can see, with his children. This is the resilience, the resistance, what we call in Arabic Samud, that will make sure that we succeed, inshallah. Unless, of course, we have a global war and we all die and cockroaches eat our bodies, which is another possibility. But if we don't have that nuclear war and we can stop climate change, then we need this direction of resistance and resilience. This is the resilience I'm speaking about, where they're trying to stop Israeli bulldozers destroying their land, their trees, etc. This is our website, and would love to communicate with you at info@palestinenature.org. You would be more than welcome to come visit us. We offer room and board for volunteers. So look us up, palestinenature.org, very easy to remember. Here, stop share. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Very impactful. And I often do this where I just invite folks to take a moment of quiet to let that sink in before we move on to Yasmin. And thank you, Professor Qumsiyeh, in particular for the combination of sort of a clear-eyed view of the world right now, juxtaposed with the hope from your last slides. Thank you very much. And with that, we're gonna move on to our next speaker, presenter, Yasmin Mohamud from Dryland Solutions. And she is hosting a bioregional confluence alongside the R3.0 conference, and is going to share with us some of the work that she's been doing with Dryland Solutions in Somalia, in particular in adopting the bioregional lens. So Yasmin, over to you.
Yeah, I can share my, hold on. Can you see my
Not yet. Can't see them yet. There. Okay, it's loading now, and we see it not in presentation mode, but looks like you're moving to that.
You just either go to presenter view. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah,
So we can see all the slides below as well. Is it possible to go out of that and into?
Yes. There we go.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, thank you. It's really wonderful listening to Professor Qasim's presentation. Really wonderful. I really appreciate. So first of all, thank you, Bill, and thank you everyone for the invitation. When I first got approached by Bill, he asked me how bioregional perspectives has influenced our work, and I found that to be something that valuable question that we can reflect on our journey. So we have always committed to restoring Somalia's dryland solutions and supporting the communities who depend on it. So just a little bit history of Somalia. Somalia, I think, just like Palestine, has been in last over 30 years. Unfortunately, has been in the news. But I think Somalia for centuries has been nomadic, agro-pastoral communities that depend heavily on the land. They have followed seasonal rains, managed grazing land, rangeland, and just chased rainfalls basically. The farm what it called protected the wells, formed where water is allowed. Somalia is well known for its frankincense and myrrh trees, valued around the world. It is long coastline, so it has a lot of natural things that we should be proud of, and a rich natural heritage. So for me today, I think since we were focused on bioregional and our work in Somalia that we're doing, what we want to focus on the bioregional perspective on the work that we have done. Obviously, we're still at the beginning stage of our work, and so the purpose hasn't changed. We have always been committed to restoring Somali's dry land, supporting the communities who depend on it. What has evolved is the way we look at the landscapes where we work. We become much more attentive to the relationship between water, soil, vegetation, and livelihoods, and communities that live within those landscapes. So rather than looking things separate and elements, we have learned to see them as one connected living system. For me, that is what bioregional perspective means. Today, obviously, we would like to share more on our reflections on how this perspective strengthens the way we work. So here, one of the biggest lessons we have learned is that the landscapes don't experience problems one at a time. In Somalia, we often hear people talk about separate things. It's like drought is the big issue, erosion is the big issue, biodiversity loss, huge biodiversity loss, declining rangelands and pasture. It was a separate challenges. And when we spend time to study the landscapes, we begin to see that they are all interconnected. Water shapes the soil supports vegetation, vegetation supports livestock. Together they support people's livelihoods. Instead of asking how do we solve one problem, we asked what relationships needs to be strengthened in the landscape for the landscape to function well again. So our understanding, as our understanding grows, so did the questions we asked. Today we spend much more time observing we spend much more time absorbing the land before deciding what to do. How do water move through this landscape? Where the land still functioning well? What human activities, particularly that cause the damage that we see? What are the local communities noticing? Kind of learning the history out of it. Sometimes they can tell you 20 years ago, this used to be very lush, and reoccurring droughts, has obviously trees have a certain lifespan, but sometimes they cannot survive like a continuous drought. Sometimes human activities is a big play. So it's just you have to learn what really caused the issues sometimes people face, and what we can learn from the landscape. What can this landscape teach us? I think that's one of the questions that we mainly focus. We have found that careful observation together with a local knowledge, scientific understanding leads to intervention, restoration decisions that are much more adapted to each locations that we're working on. People often ask which restoration techniques sorry, is this the, just to give me. Just to give me a second. So I think interventions becomes responsive. People often ask, people often ask which restoration techniques you're going to use. People are just excited. They want to solve the issues right away. So they're eager to just to kind of ask, what are you going to use Gabion for this restoration, particular site that is degraded with the soil erosions? Are you going to start with tree planting and vegetation? Are you going to start with harvesting rainwater, which is something very new, and maybe they have a particular way of looking at it. Sometimes the answer is yes to whatever the question that they're asking, but those aren't really the first questions that we focus on. Sometimes the things that we focus on is what is the landscape telling us. Once we understand the water, how the water moves, where erosions began, how people interact with the land, the appropriate interventions becomes much more clear. Restoration becomes successful when landscapes help guide the solutions. So our project is still progress. We're not where we want to be, and hopefully in a few years we will be able to host an actual volunteers or scientific expertise to come to our site to support us. But right now, our Toka Watershed project is one of our greatest teachers. First is interacting with the communities and kind of introducing one, learning from a traditional way of doing things, and another is, working with the communities that actually donated the land. They're like intentional Sufi communities who are well interconnected with the permaculture design concept without even, I guess permaculture design aspect of it. It is a traditional way of doing things. So just to kind of go in with the communities where they have a shared aspect of collecting resources, having a large kitchen area, kind of supporting each other. So they were, when we were first approached them, they were very much one of the few communities that understood the work we were trying to do and welcomed us. So, and they were like, hey, this land, we used to have a huge farm that we used to grow all types of vegetations. And then obviously with all these elements of weather, especially weather-related issues and soil erosions, the land became extremely degraded. And that's how we managed to be able to get the land donated to us to be able to work on it. So in this, it is where we continue, of course, this land is where we continue learning how water, soil, vegetation, and communities are interconnected, working alongside with the community and understanding their, and not just their needs, but like really working with that side by side, deepening our understanding of the landscapes. Those lessons continue to influence our work across Somalia. So the practices, I think, so yeah, the techniques, we don't like just look for individual sites, we look for entire watersheds. We don't just look for short activities or long-term stewardship, which, it's easy to with the communities that are already connected with the land, with nature, to really support them. And we don't look at it in beneficiaries, but we look for communities that are knowledge holders and as partners. So this is my last slide. I would like to finish this with one final thought. Bioregional perspectives reminds us that there isn't one model that fits for every place. Every landscape is different. Every watershed has its own story. Every community has its own knowledge. What we can share isn't a blueprint. We can share with the ways observing, learning, and working more closely with the living system that sustain us. And that's where I want to complete with my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. And again, I invite folks to let that sink in as we shift into our dialogue mode. And also contemplate questions you may have for Yasmin and Professor Mazin. Great. Questions that folks have for one or the other or both? Ralph, you first.
Thank you. First of all, thanks to both of the presenters. It just gains new insight about the severity of the situation, of the regions that you live in and the problems that you may face. And Professor Mazin, you were mentioning that through the occupation and through the constant bombing by the Israelis, I think you said 94% of all trees got destroyed. And then I saw the pictures of kids trying to prepare food. Where does this food now come from? Was what I was asking myself.
The 94% of the tree cover in Gaza is destroyed, the Gaza Strip. The pictures I showed you are here in the West Bank. The West Bank is another part of Palestine.
Yes.
It's not as heavily damaged as the Gaza Strip. So we still have some land, although a lot of it has been taken over. For example, I'm speaking to you from Bethlehem, where the birthplace of Jesus. But anyway, Bethlehem district has lost 85% of its land to settlements, colonies, like the one I showed you called Har Homa, which was replaced the trees that were the only forested area between Bethlehem and Jerusalem, basically was removed in 1997 to build this Jewish settlement of Har Homa. That's right here next to my house. But when I say they took 85% of our land and they're building settlements like that, that means there's still 15% of the land of the district of Bethlehem that is still accessible to us for the time being, of course. It shrinks every year, and every step of the way there's harassments and attacks on us. So food is a big issue here. Actually, now gasoline also. People don't have gasoline. There's restrictions on this, and there's a financial crisis. Most of our people are unemployed. So there is no sources of income, basically, because Israel controls all elements of our lives, all the economy, there's no freedom of movement, there's no freedom of education, there's no freedom of religion, there's destruction of healthcare facilities throughout Palestine. But it is worse in Gaza. Gaza is the epitome of this. Gaza is only 365 square kilometers, and there were 2.3 million people there. Now we estimate only 1.5 million remain. The rest are either killed or displaced outside the Gaza Strip. But anyways, that's the worst level. Then comes the West Bank, then comes the rest of the area, like the Galilee and the Negev. So there's different levels of destruction. And what we as Palestinians try to do, I showed you the picture of a guy in Gaza trying to grow things next to his tent with his children. What we try to do is basically adapt, persist, do what we can with what we have. And it's not very easy. There's actually starvation in Gaza. People are dying of starvation and diseases that are easily curable if they had access to medical facilities. So the situation indeed here is catastrophic. And we are the sample to the world. If we don't fix our problems and we start challenging rampant capitalism and colonialism, then we're all doomed to become Palestinians, whether we live in Australia or America or Europe or anywhere else.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And Bill, I see that there is a question in the sidebar directly relating to that.
Yeah, River, do you want to go off mute and pose your question, or shall we pose that for you?
Sure. Hi. This is for both presenters. First, thank you very much for taking the time to share these perspectives. My first question is, what's the most helpful thing that someone could do to directly support your work? What action could we take that could be most helpful? And then my second question is, how do you stay internally fortified and strong as you're working to solve such tremendous problems? Where does your strength to do that come from?
Thank you for this question. I'll put in the chat a link from my own page. What you can do, basically, I have 74 things that people can do. There may be too many, but you can choose from those what you can do. There's different activities that people engage in. Obviously, holding seminars like this, networking as you are doing in this forum, building institutions, work on media, engaging in boycott, divestment, sanctions like we did with South Africa under apartheid. There are many, many ways. I mean, as I said, on the link I put is just 74, 75 items, but there's many more. And people can do whatever they are good at. You know, if you're good at media or you're good at writing, you do that. If you're a good at musician, then use music as resistance. If you love farming like I do, I work in the garden every day, then I think, you know, you can do that. Even if you don't have land, you can have a farm or a garden on your roof or on your walls. So there are many, many things that people can do. And this directly connects to your other question. What keeps us going is that action. Somebody once said, action is the best antidote to despair. If you're active, if you're doing things, and you see the results, of course, of what you are doing, that's the best way to keep your spirit up, despite the challenges you have. Everybody has challenges, by the way, wherever they live. But of course, you know, I have challenges here. I was arrested many times, detained many times for my actions or for speaking out. I'm harassed. I received death threats even. But that's minuscule compared to what people in Gaza are facing, which is literally starvation and death by bombings. I mean, I have friends of mine who lost, one friend lost over 100 members of his extended family, some immediate like cousins and uncles, and one parent. And some more distant relatives, but imagine losing 100 of your family members in one bombing, by the way. So this is different levels of challenge. But as I said, even this other friend that I showed you the picture in Gaza with them planting next to the tent, I'm sure he's psychologically more adapted to that traumatic situation than other people, and he's more adapted because he's doing what he can. He's planting next to his tent. He's writing to me. He's sharing his story. He's doing something. So if you do something, no matter how small, you are better off in the long run, psychologically, physically, in many other ways.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I the link actually didn't go to the right page, so I put the correct link into the sidebar for the what you can do.
I misspelled it, yeah.
Yeah. Yasmin, over to you for the same questions from River. What's the most helpful thing someone could offer and support right now of your work, and what helped you stay internally strong as you work to solve such deep problems?
Hold on. Wonderful question, I think, to ask. I think as Professor Mace described it, I think one of the things is definitely having platforms like this, kind of really like getting the word out that projects like the one that we're working in Somalia, it's happening, and that people could support, just even like a word to mouth, sharing our stories, knowing that, there is a great work that being done in Somalia, and supporting, I think any other, what do you call it? Obviously, like the professor said, going to the website and kind of supporting however you can. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have the space to we're not have the capacity to actually bring volunteers on, but obviously we're actively still looking for resources and expanding and seeking for support. One of the other thing is sharing knowledge, right? Like, one of the things is like we're always learning, and we're always wanted to connect with people who have done work like this in different parts of the world as well. I think one of the tricky thing of Somalia is that, you sometimes wonder, it's like, why can things be fixed? But then if you decide to like take in a seat to Somalia, you're not able. Like if you want to travel there's so many red tapes, and the reality is it's the place is like it's not invested in Al-Shabaab. It is people are just doing normal things. They're fishing. They're they have their livestock, they're growing their food. Unfortunately, there is no excuse, but 70% of our food comes from outside. And sometimes you're like, how did we get here? But there's a lot of red tapes. I think that people don't understand Somalia, that, somehow we've been isolated purposely. Right. And it's like you label it, but we one of the reason I think the second question is like, what motivates you? What motivates me is I stay strong, remembering why this work matters, why protecting our environment matters, why healing nature and healing the communities matters, that went through so much for so many years. Connecting with the communities and knowing the support that they need, and being inspired. Every, I think, young person that get inspired just to be in us there, and having this tremendous what do you call it, hope, and see the potential. Like, I think sometimes people lose the potential that the land has and how you can bring back to life. And I remember in December, we were doing a permaculture a training with the women's cooperative farmers, and just being there, training them and working them. They were so inspired, and they were like, please come back again. And that's why it's important to really create this demonstration side. So what I think what kind of it's not an easy work just to kind of like, it's not like every day, but I think what helps is like, one is like having, I don't know how to describe it. I think people always ask, it's like what why are you so optimistic? I think people ask, it's like how you're so persistent, and that type of like energy. And it's like it comes from an inside where you could see the vision, like you're like, this could be a great thing if we can just make things happen, right? So I think, and just seeing hope for the future generations that they will inherit a better land, that's definitely what I look forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you, for those in-depth responses. And while we've got you on Spotlight, Yasmin, we have a question from Bronwyn. Bronwyn, are you able to go off mute? Okay, great. Great.
I can. I hope there's not too much background noise, but thank you both so much. And yes, Yasmin, I mean, the question I wrote, I would add just a bit to it. It was, I mean, I loved the emphasis that you had on, all the ways in which you've stepped back from trying to act too fast and be more relational, move slower, listen to the land, all of that. And I'm wondering about resistance to that, maybe from actors that are not quite so close to what you're doing, but are still important for support, whether that's financial or permission, and sort of how you persuade them to accept that approach. And I just would add to that, maybe I am assuming that there's more resistance than there, because your context is so different. And I think sort of the wealthy West is so obsessed with immediate action and fragmented expertise, and also maybe in a context where the enormous challenges that you are both facing, there's more room for the approach. But I would be curious about, and if people do resist, what persuades them to accept this approach?
I'm don't have a bit.
Oh, sorry. So resist, do you mean like the locals resisting the intervention?
Yeah, I mean, people saying, but I mean, I get this a lot when we sort of just saying, but we can't, it's urgent. We need to do something. We need to show some results. We need to decide on the intervention now. There's no time to listen to the land, or they can't even quite conceive of listening to the land because it's too radical an orientation. So both a kind of philosophical resistance and a pragmatic impatience.
Well, sometimes I don't like to focus on the resistance on these types of platforms. I don't know why. Sometimes I'm like, let's think about positive, But I think, of course, as you can imagine, working in place like Somalia, so much resistance. And I think even let's say the community is one side, the funders is another side as well. You go to the funders and you're like, this is the work that we're trying to do. Like, we're trying to long-term solutions. We don't want handouts. We don't want it aid money. We want it. And they'll be like, for Somalia, we have this mandate, humanitarian emergency, and that's what we focus on. And it's like long-term, it's like, that's not what long term, it doesn't have a deadline, right? Like, it's a project-based concept. So them, it's like, and then you have the government who's selling the idea of emergency, because that is an easier way to get those fundings. But then the community side of it, I think if we yes, it's like the farm that we went, we were helping. So, and they would be telling us all this problem. It's like, I have this problem, we have this problem. And then I think we go back to saying, let's listen to the land, let's focus the soil, let's do this. And they were like, no, I have a problem right now. I need you to tell me how to stop this fungus. Just tell me what type of poisonous that I need to buy to make it healthy again. So I think that's why I think our project is we're really looking the resources to start building the facility where we can able to showcase and demonstrate exactly what we're talking about. So I feel like the community, with regards, I don't think they're resisting because they know better. They don't know better. Like mostly the communities that we work with is originally nomadic communities, and they're settled and they're doing their best to kind of do this farm their own. So definitely. But I think one of the things that I realize is like nothing is impossible. There's always possibility, I guess, so that is what gives us hope, and that's what gives us the strength to kind of move forward, knowing that we're able to chip in and change people's minds and put seeds of like possibilities, different way of doing it and better way of doing it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you, Bronwyn, for that important question. We have a next question from David Berman. And David, are you able to go off mute and voice this one yourself, or shall I voice
Sure.
it?
No, I can do that. It's a
Great.
simple question, because you referred to the native vegetation in Palestine that had been replaced by pine forests, which doesn't make any sense, but it seemed like a convenient thing to do. But can you describe what the vegetation was like before that should have been augmented rather than displaced?
Yeah, so the host needs to allow me to unmute. There, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep, we can hear you. Thanks.
Oh yeah, thanks, David, for that question. Israel uprooted millions of trees, native trees. Palestine, as I mentioned, is part of the Fertile Crescent. In your message in the chat, you mentioned something about greening the desert. Palestine was never a desert. Palestine has always been a fertile part of the Fertile Crescent with lots of rich landscape with different kinds of trees, both indigenous wild trees like carobs and hawthorns and oaks, and also planted trees like olives, palms, almonds, figs, and so on. Even in the Bible, it says the land of milk and honey. That means it's a very rich land. That's why it was before the Zionist invasion. Now, they uprooted a lot of trees because they felt that they could not leave the landscape as indigenous-looking landscape, so they want to Europeanize the landscape and create a European look to it with pine trees. And also pine trees grow fast. Pinus halepensis, the Aleppo pine it's called, grows fairly fast, and it's essentially invasive. It doesn't allow much biodiversity underneath it because its leaves are acidic and they tend to kill off the undergrowth, basically. So it was devastating for biological diversity and for forest structures here. It was a replacement forest, not planting trees where there was no trees. They literally uprooted trees and planted a monoculture of pine trees to replace a polyculture of other kinds of trees. And we have the data on this, so the idea that Israel is somehow good at environment and that it made the desert bloom and all of this is nonsense, proven by even Israeli scientists who looked at the situation, like Alon Tell, who wrote books about the subject, actually. So I think there's lots of data that show how harmful it is to the biological diversity of trees. It was to destroy them, and of course, then to plant a monoculture to replace them. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David, for that question. I don't see any other questions in the sidebar right now. So just opening it up to see if folks, okay, Emmanuel, over to you.
Yeah, hi. I'm so happy that both of them are here with us today, because for meeting Mazin and Yasmin this year, mostly through Michael Pilarski Earth Repair Convergence, where we got to interview them. I'd heard about Mazin and saw a webinar from Alfred Decker and social permaculture. And actually, there's also a group on social media called Permaculture for Palestine that people could follow. I think they're on Telegram for more action and more gathering. But it's been so inspiring for Megan and I to weave and meet both of them regularly, because the resilience and the resistance and the creativity and the hope that we receive from exchanging with them has been so inspiring to us. So I'm really happy that you get to have a test of it. And also the idea that what they're doing, yeah, it's not called permaculture per se, it's called traditional agriculture, and that ancestrally it's something that their communities were doing anyway. And then they were interrupted by Western intervention and war and genocide and industrial revolution for us, even in the Western side of the world. Because today I just heard that with the fires in France, for instance, in Les Landes, which is near Bordeaux, one of the biggest forests in Europe, is actually an artificial forest planted in the 18th, 19th century with the Industrial Revolution, made of mostly pines. And that's probably the reason why it's burning now. Besides the fact that people are also smoking in forest after weeks of canicule and letting their cigarette not extinguish. So like human destruction in both places here and in the world is incredible. And the amount of work and hope and groups and community have to every morning wake up and think, okay, what are we asked to do to help our communities and help the world? And they are in a way the island of Koreans. They're like role models for us. That's why Palestine is such an important conversation and how we need to mobilize. So very happy. Thank you so much for the two of you to have joined the Confluence Network, because it's going to be really exciting to work with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I see Professor Qumsiyeh has gone off mute, but just as a bit of a handoff, I'll just say I was on a call yesterday with Andrea Farias, our research fellow, and she's based in Barcelona. And she said that one of the problems of the fires in Spain is the lack of traditional grazing, that actually reduced the biomass on the flora of forests that now is not being removed. So anyway, just wanted to add that little bit. But Professor Qumsiyeh, you went off mute. I didn't know if you had a comment that you wanted to make there.
No, I just want to say thank you for your comments, and certainly, what Yasmin is doing is amazing. And I think, we need to collaborate, Yasmin. I think we can do some things together. We're both in situations with manufactured anthropogenic disaster, in my humble opinion. And, we have to work on both fronts. We have to work collectively to challenge imperialism, colonialism, and rampant capitalism that's causing the climate change catastrophe that we're facing. That's one line of action, if you want. But the second line of action is what Yasmin is doing and what we are doing and other people are doing, which is on the ground work to try and mitigate and try to adapt and try to help people. That's all important, and each of you can contribute on either or both of these lines of action.
Thank you, Yasmin. Comments from your end before we go to Ralph with the last question?
Absolutely. It was really wonderful to be a part of this conversation and dialogue. And I'm so grateful for Emmanuel and Megan for recommending us. And it was wonderful to connect with Professor Mazin, and absolutely would love to, connect and maybe one day come to your facility and volunteer, inshallah. And wonderful of Bill and everyone to, and Raf, appreciate for the invitation. Thank you all for wonderful questions.
Great, thank you. So Ralph, last question over to you.
Okay, thank you. And thanks also for sharing your website links, because I do think this is really essential. And Jasmine, I only had a short glimpse at your website, and I think it's fantastic. I think the way how you present the work that you're doing is just immensely important, because, speaking from a Western perspective, now experiencing more than 40 degrees outside, even 42, 43, and now seeing the effects of that with all the wildfires and the droughts and even beach storms and things like that. I think what we lack is the imagination that even with temperatures like you also very often have, and the temperatures, let's say 10 centimeters below ground, are even higher, that this is not lost territory, because this is how many see many parts of Africa, especially close to the Sahara and to the equator region. So I think that, these website approaches are acts of giving active hope. And I think I just want to congratulate you both to being very clear and very outspoken, and also very visual, especially in the case of Yasmin that I was now able to see. I think it is highly important that this visualization is reachable, and that our own imagination in the Western world can really grab some of that hope that you're expressing through your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. I see we do have one final question from Bronwyn, so maybe we'll go over to you, Bronwyn, before we close things out. Ralph and I have a few final things to share about upcoming events. So Bronwyn, over to you with the last question.
Thank you. And it's actually more of a comment, and maybe it partly echoes what Ralph said, but Yasmin, I really, I've been sort of reflecting on what you said about not wanting to focus on resistance. And I understand that. And I wouldn't actually ask the question if it wasn't already a community that was so committed to these kinds of positive visions. But I still really learned from, I now have a sense that one way to do it is, I'm going to take this back into our work in Sydney, is to actually, as somebody said on the chat, that your clarity of commitment, both of you, is so powerful that to sort of, rather than trying, to just go in passionate about this different way, and almost, at least in the context of the kinds of interlocutors we have, to almost sort of prod them and provoke them teasingly that, they are going to have to adjust their sense of what matters, what is an outcome, how we learn, and just see what does, to have both the positivity and the clarity, and then really just push other people on that, rather than try and mold what we're doing to ways that we increasingly know don't work. And definitely echoing what Ralph says, is that learning from essentially, communities that have gone through far greater challenges than we have, to start where you are, rather than try and copy what we have been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Yasmin, Mazin, responses to that, or final comments from you before we move into the closing?
Go ahead, Yasmin.
Oh yeah, no, it's a really wonderful. It's not that I think that I don't like to focus on resistance, but the resistance is important, and I do would like to share. But I think today I was like, let's share about the work, uh, maybe the hope, maybe what I envisioned for Somalia for this project. But absolutely, thank you for wanting to know the resistance as well, because I think that is a big part of the work that we do. And it is, I think one of the things that I learned as well with this project that we're doing, because it's such a visionary, it's such in a place where you do get many rejections, and so you always like connect with human level and see like someone would actually be able to, carry, like you said, carry that work with them and share that with other people as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Yasmin. I can only add that basically you can do multiple things at one time, but do what interests you. If you are interested in certain forms of resistance, do them. If you're interested in farming, do it. Whatever interests you, but get engaged. The biggest thing is to get engaged and do things. And we welcome you if you want to come to Palestine, volunteer with us. As I said, we got lots of volunteers from around the world. You can also volunteer from abroad. You can help us from where you are by networking us with others, by in-kind donations, like if you know graphics or something. We're building a new museum of natural history here. We have educational programs, so we need a lot of support. Statistics, whatever your fancy is, you can help us. And this is all our forms of resistance. When I plant a bean here, I'm engaged in resistance. When I'm drinking this tea here, I'm engaged in resistance because the Zionists don't want me to be drinking tea or planting beans here or anything. They want me out of this country, and they said it to me point blank, and they tried to push me in every direction to do it. So I think the same for everybody in this country. And even Jews who are supportive of human rights are being attacked and beaten, and so, but they continue to resist like me by steadfastness, by sumud, by persistence, by working together. One Jewish Israeli actually volunteered with us for 2 years here. She eventually converted to Islam, actually, but she was leader of the Zohar is her name. She was leader on the Freedom Flotilla trying to break the siege on Gaza. So we welcome, it's a joint struggle. I actually don't necessarily like the word solidarity because that implies like what Yasmin talked about, which is humanitarian aid and emergency help for some poor people. No, actually, we're not poor. We have circumstances, but it's a joint struggle. Your struggle, wherever you are in the US or Australia or New Zealand or wherever, your struggle is my struggle. We have this one little blue planet. We don't have any other. And if we destroy it, we're all finished. It's not a matter of nations or states or any of this stuff. My struggle is the same as Yasmin's struggle. It's the same thing. So I join her in the struggle. It's not that I show solidarity with the Somali people.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Qumsiyeh. Thank you, Yasmin. And thanks to everyone for the wonderful questions. We're going to shift into closing. I'm going to start that by asking Kim, if you're able to go off mute, if you could just voice what we've got planned next.
Yes, I'm still sitting like you, Bill. I'm just like, but yes, for sure. We are. I just want to say thank you so much. Yasmin's looking at everything as the whole, and Mazin, who the pleasure of meeting at a peace action event that turned into kind of bioregioning event in Cleveland, maybe 3 years ago. But we are having a confluencing campfire, a pop-up right after this, and I'm going to put a link into the chat for anyone who's just curious or who might be working on confluencing, whether we're interested in maybe who's doing what, and they're just sitting around and processing today. So I'm going to put a chat in here. It's part of a co-fundical week of pop-up events that show little just snippets of who's doing what in the co-creating regenerative funding ecosystem community. So everyone is invited, and I know some of you are already coming. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. So she'll post the link. There we go. Thank you for that. And we'll start that at 1/4 the hour. Ralph, if you want to bring up, there we go. So this is the link to the open dialogues on bioregioning. And so we have all of these sessions. We have recordings, we have decks, all of them are listed on our website. We showed that earlier. And so I'll share the link to this landing page. This is also where we will place the recording and deck for this session. So that's where you can find that information on past dialogues and upcoming dialogues. And our next dialogue is on August 20th. It's going to feature our research fellow, Andrea Farias, who I mentioned earlier. And she's going to be launching her database of research on bioregional knowledge commons. So this is part of work that we are doing at R3.0 together. Her component is secondary research. So she's done a lot of secondary research on existing web resources on bioregional knowledge commons. And so she has a database of 117 different initiatives that she's done research on, and I believe 57 case studies. So that'll be happening next month. And then Ralph, over to you for the next slide, I believe.
Yeah. And Bill, I think what you mentioned here is EST time frame.
Oh yes, that is EST. I didn't. I pulled it from the announcement that had it labeled for me.
All right, cool. Yeah, just a very quick sort of like slide to alert you to our 13th annual R3.0 conference. And all of the dialogues that happened helped us in shaping an agenda. The title of the conference is Bioregional Regeneration as Collapse Resilience. And collapse resilience has really become sort of our template or our strategy, our work title for the stuff that we're doing. And what you see here below, Earth-centric biocultural kinship, knowledge or bioregional knowledge commons and bioregional governance also reflect the 3 days of the conference where we have one session per day. And then we have debrief sessions, which I'm going to talk about just in a second when we go to the conferences. So we're going to have a 3-day conference from on September 8, 9, 10. And those are accompanied by parallel in-person bioregional confluences. They will happen globally. And each day we're going to focus on one of these 3 dimensions of collapse resilience. So the first day is going to be on Earth-centric biocultural kinship, the second day on knowledge commons, and the third day on bioregional governance. You find all that information in the link that is mentioned there below on the conference website, which gives you more insight and a full overview of the agenda of all of the speakers. There's a ticketing page for those who are not part of a conference. For them, the conference is free of charge. And then, of course, a conference page as well, which I'm going to show next. As you can see, we had invited conference organizers to register a conference with us. That's a concept that we first adopted 2 years ago with one conference. Then last year we had about 50 conferences. And as you can see here, we are now at 82 conference registrations. So there's growing interest from all over the world, from all of these bioregional groups, or groups in bioregions, call it that way, that are trying to convene, where they are going to come together, place-based, face-to-face, where they are going to screen the online conference and then take time to digest on what they heard and translate that into their own contexts. And on each of those 3 days, there is a possibility a couple of hours later to return and to debrief together with us, what they did with the context that they have heard in the online conference. We do this once in the evening and then again on the morning of the second of the next day. That is on purpose because we try to embrace as many time zones as possible. And I think with that approach, we can reach between 18 and 20 time zones in total, and hope that that finds acceptance with these groups. The conferences are also mentioned on the website. There's an extra sub-page that is devoted to all of these conferences. You can see where they are, who organizes them, and where they are going to meet. And if you're interested in joining one of those conferences, please feel free to reach out to the conference organizers, or if you want to register a conference yourself, that is still possible until the end of the month. Okay, thanks. Bill, I think I'll hand it over to you, back to you here.
That's great, Ralph. Thank you. And I just posted the link to the page that Ralph mentioned. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a separate series of calls that is specific to our confluencing community. Those happen on a monthly basis, and upcoming in August, we are spotlighting 3 initiatives that are all from the Greater Takaranto bioregion in Canada, north of Lake Ontario. And so we have Sarah Hainan from the Canadian Centre for Food and Ecology, Michelle Braniff from the Grand River Watershed Learning Centre, and Randy Saad from the Waterloo Region Bioregioning Initiative. So if you want to attend that, that's open to members of the confluencing community. So we encourage folks to sign up for hosting a confluence in order to join that community. Next slide, please, Ralph. This is just a quick view of our last one that just happened last week. This was the Upper New bioregion here on Turtle Island, and actually Halia, who you heard from earlier, presented some poetry both in Urdu and in English that had bioregional themes to it. So we do post the decks for those. So next slide, please, Ralph. This is the link to where you can find the decks for all of these. So we do make the decks available, but the recordings are available to the community members. And then you'll see that we have a link to our conference media partner, Story Moss, that also profiles the bioregional confluencing community members So you can find that link here on this website. Thanks to Emmanuel and Megan, who are on the call today, for partnering with us. Next slide, please, Ralph. Last thing is that we really welcome contributions to our confluencing fund. We have a goal of $50,000 to support those who are hosting confluences. And so we've just gotten word this week that the Christopher Reynolds Foundation will be supporting that. And we are in conversation with others about sort of larger funder support for this. But also on the next slide, you'll see that we also take individual support. And I think that we've gotten about $2,000 of support from individuals contributing to the Confluencing Fund. So we encourage you to do that. And with that, I believe that brings us to an end. Thanks again so much to Professor Qumsiyeh and to Yasmin for joining us today. And thanks to all of you for the great questions and comments. And we look forward to seeing you all next time and seeing some of you in the Hangout coming up. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.